All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Builds Refresh. Today, we are talking about Nezha, who will be using a few new things, including Dante's book. Nezha has received a new augment that has fundamentally changed the way probably most people are going to play Nezha going forward, as it is extremely impactful to Nezha. For that, the completely new build is this. This is pretty different from what we've run on Nezha in the past, as usually you completely dumpster range in favor of removing his 4 and going like Roar and more damage bonuses and things like that. But now, with the new augment, Divine Retribution, things have changed significantly. So Divine Retribution is when a speared enemy suffers from a status effect, the status effect spreads to all speared enemies. Spear explosions apply a 1.5x status damage. So what that last sentence means is that it cashes in all of the statuses on the enemies and just does all the damage at once, much like what Dante's Tragedy ability does. And the top part means that this is insanely, insanely good. For anyone that doesn't know, Divine Spears has a very generous range of 50 meters with this build, which is really, really huge. On top of that, the multiplier, is already good at 1.5, so we don't need a ton of strength, though it is helpful in order to make this even stronger than it needs to be. So we are using fleeting to make this very, very cheap. And in addition to that, we don't really care if we lose much duration. I think 5 seconds is totally fine to be able to apply whatever you need to apply to the enemies and have them be dead. But you could go even lower if you wanted to. You could do Transient Fortitude in this slot instead of Augur Secrets, which I have tried. But personally, I like having a little bit more time for the spears to either like just be a stun or to apply whatever I need to apply in whatever way that needs to happen. And then, of course, we are running all of the range. Overextended, Augur Reach, Stretch, just like, the full thing except for Cunning, and it's really good. Besides that, we need to kind of make up some strength, so we're just running Umbral Intensify and Augur Secrets just to kind of get rid of the negative strength from Overextended, and then we're running Molt Augmented just to get that nice bonus of 60%, which is going to give us, better everything with what we're doing. And then I'm just running Energy Siphon, as we don't really need to worry about armor, so Corrosive Projection is not really needed. And then Streamlined Form is just to taste for me for more speed on Nezha. If you hate that Nezha slides around, there is, of course, the augment you could run up here that gives strength and removes his passive. And that's, going to make the build do more damage. For me personally, I like sliding around with Nezha, so that's what I've got here. And then we just have Aegis and Adaptation for survivability alongside Nezha's 3, making us very, very hard to kill. And with our energy economy, casting our 3 as much as we need to stay alive is not going to be a problem. And then the big thing that makes this build not work, but really, really feel a lot better, is subsuming Dark Verse. So this is what Dante has given us. So those of you that watched the Dante video know that this is a very, very large AoE, multiple slash procs on every enemy that you can essentially see on your screen. And this combines perfectly with Divine Retribution for some quadratic scaling. If you hit 4 and your Divine Spears hit, say, 20 enemies in front of you, and then maybe some guys behind you, to the sides of you, so on and so forth, but the 20 guys in front of you, then you can cast Dark Verse, and Dark Verse will take all of the enemies you can see and put slash procs on them, and then Divine Retribution will take all of the slash procs that you put on each enemy and put them on every single enemy that is affected by your 4. Which means, basically, casting Dark Verse once is equivalent to casting it for as many enemies as you can see on every enemy that's under your 4. And what that ends up doing is war crimes, basically. So we're just going to take, the battle group here. We'll pause their AI for this, even though that's not necessary. Basically, you throw your 4 up, then you hit 1, you cash it in, and these enemies are now dead. You don't need to cash it in because the ability will just naturally end and do that. But that is what it does. And this is with, of course, the limited amount of enemies of just only 20 here in the Simulacrum. So it's very, very strong to have such a large AoE turn into a map wipe, essentially. However, this does come with some caveats. Number one, it doesn't really work on Eximus, and enemies that are immune to status obviously don't really give a shit about this at all. So, all of your kind of like tougher style enemies, this doesn't affect. This will kill all of the fodder, and it can work on Eximus, but it's really finicky on Eximus. Just to show what I mean, we'll have these arid butchers. If we spawn these guys, the way that the 4 works, and I actually do think that this will be changed so that you can't even do this, whenever your 4 goes out, it does spear them momentarily, and then like the damage happens, but the crowd control doesn't work. If you hit them with a status while they are being hit with the spear, it will spread between them. But even, like, it's a very limited window, and you need a good consideration of casting speed to even really take advantage of it. So I don't particularly think that it's intended to work, and I expect that to probably get changed. But that is a thing you can do now, and it's like, if you want to go even lower duration, that's one of the reasons to do so that your ability kind of instantly ends on its own with Transient Fortitude being installed, going down to like 12% duration. Then you can just cast your 4 over and over and like try and hit that window a bunch of times. It's a thing you can do, but I think it's unintended. And 2, it is really finicky. And I think just like using this combination to clear out all of the enemies that are affected by it really fast and easily, and then, you know, just shooting the remaining few enemies with a gun is probably going to be more consistent and overall just like a better thing to plan around. Now, we are using this with Dark Verse, but that is absolutely not to say that it is the only thing that it works with. Obviously, you're seeing me with the Glaive and the Epitaph here, and both of these work very, very well. The reason I chose the Glaive and the Epitaph is because the Glaive, very, very hard to get, very, very expensive platinum-wise. Really make sure you get this on the next unvaulting of it, because it's been a while, and it continues to get more and more expensive, but I wouldn't suggest spending the platinum on it if you don't have it. The Epitaph is a secondary option that is really, really easy to get from Railjack and is actually new player accessible, which I would very much suggest for this, because if we look at just our Orokin battle group here, we just see what the Epitaph can do. Launch this out. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't actually take 2 shots. I did fire twice, but it doesn't actually take 2 shots. You saw that the damage is quite good, and that's without building up the build on the Epitaph, as this is a bit of a change up of the build. Obviously, this build is expensive, but the only thing you really need to make this work are some basic crit mods and hemorrhage because of the guaranteed impact. But even if you're not using the Epitaph, you can use primary weapons with Hunter munitions. You know, things that inflict a ton of heat procs also work. The Torrid obviously is going to be very good with this for all of its heat procs and everything. And then, of course, the Glaive is nuts with this, because the Glaive will basically do the thing the Zorus does now. This is a way to get access to kind of like the thing the Zorus does, which is you throw this and all those enemies get hit with slash, and then that hits everyone with as many enemies as you did hit with your 4 all at once, which is just outrageous. But yeah, so this is Nuke Nezha, I suppose. It is very, very fun and like extremely, extremely good, to the point where everybody has just been asking me when I think it's going to get nerfed. But honestly, because it can't hit any like large enemies outside of that very tiny window, that I do think that will be changed. I really don't think that it's super problematic, because you do have to deal with like all of like the special units and things still, and there's plenty of things that kill fodder units really fast and easily. It is also worth noting that there are other options for the Subsume here. Wrathful Advance is one that is much higher damage and is just as like a different vibe to use. I wanted to use Dark Verse because I think it's very fun, and it does like a similar function. But if you really want super, super high damage, Wrathful Advance is a really great choice to just do 4 and then Wrathful Advance one of the speared enemies. Then everyone gets hit with like a gigantic slash proc from like Hate with super high crit or some such like that. And like that is another really good way to play this. Of course, you can still just go roar and shoot a gun. But there's a lot of different things that you could choose for this that synergize really well. With that being said, In terms of shards, I only have the 1 casting speed shard on this, just because like you're casting your 4, casting your 1 back and forth. A lot of this is due to it just being because I've chosen Dante's ability, and the casting speed is very helpful for the 4 into like 2 1s here. But if you're using other options, you might find that you don't need the casting speed. In terms of the other stuff, it could really be a lot of different things. You could go like utility, more parkour, more energy. You could go just raw strength if you wanted to. Duration, obviously, as I said, is not really needed here, but if you prefer the longer stuns for whatever reason, you can, of course, do that. Really, you're kind of like the whole net is open here. You could like add equilibrium with shards if you wanted to. Million different things you could do that are all like going to be good. For me personally, it's probably like 1 parkour shard and then some strength. That's probably like the right way to go with it. But yeah, that's what's going on with new Nezha. Let's just jump into the Steel Path and just obliterate some dudes. All right, jumping in here. I think I wanted to note, like, as we get into this test here, I asked a bit earlier on the Atlas video if people wanted me to do Netra cells, and I am still considering that, but I think I'm not going to change to a different, like, test that we do for these videos until after the big tier list comes out, just so, like, all of the builds before that kind of have, like, you know, the clear testing that you can, like, cross between them. But we may do Netra cells in the future, though. Throw our 3 on. You can just wait for enemies to walk up. And 4 into 1. And you can just watch the map dissipate in terms of enemies. I will say that this tile set is actually like a little bit worse for this. Because as the doors close, it's like harder to get like enemies to cast on. But that is not a huge deal, as you can pretty clearly see as you watch the dots disappear on the map. It is a very, very large AoE, and it is a very, very good. You can see like the mods appearing on the map over here. Rooms like this are actually super, super good for this, I found. See all those guys disappear. Although one of the problems that you'll run into in a room like this is like sometimes you will like not go get the energy orbs. You can see the Xmas just resisting there. Take them out with just like a usual weapon. Yeah, then taking out the Xmas just manually. Which, like, you know, any number of guns you could take for, like, oh, I need to clean up this, like, kind of special unit. And just, like, you can get, like, we're a minute and a half in and we're at 227 kills. Like, it's very solid. Making sure you have just, like, some vector to see the enemies, and, like, you can see all, like, the air support over here. Or not air support, life support. Playing a little too much Helldivers. But yeah, it's, like, I mean, this is a room, I will say, this is a room that is especially good for this. Like, it is the perfect shape and size, and the way the enemies approach is very advantageous for what you want to be doing with this build on Nezha. But, like, I mean, hey, you should be looking for areas that can do that. So, you know, sometimes you get lucky, and, you know, like in the Dante video, things were, like, a little suboptimal for, like, the area that I was hanging out in and stuff, but sometimes you're just in the place that your Warframe wants to be, and that is definitely the case here. Yeah, and then obviously, like, the Epitaph, very good, really good, really just like the Epitaph is a weapon that is just very good, just like general. And it's a weapon I really suggest people get and keep, because it has a lot of different weird uses. Like, it's a great status spreader. If you're ever going to need to prime an enemy, it's very good at that. Although it's unlikely you'll ever actually need to prime an enemy, of course. But it just does a lot of good stuff that not a ton of other weapons can say they do. Like, it's Got really good single target damage. It's got AoE. It's a status spreader. It's, you know, a slash weapon. It really is in a lot of... It's in a lot of different boxes for, like, good weapon thing that many weapons can't say that they're in. Like, even things like... it's in, like, the same variety pack as something like the Latum, but it has, like, even more than that in terms of just, like, what it does actually get access to for versatility. It's actually kind of a weapon that I feel like because it comes from Railjack, it's kind of slept on. But it's so easy to get from there, and Railjack is so worth playing now that, you know, just super good. But yeah, in terms of, I mean, I know I'm like not talking about the build, but like, is there much for me to say besides look how good this is? Like, Dante's ability mostly gives you, in this case, it just gives you the ability to, like, do all this at range. And also, a big thing that's actually nice about this is if I see Nezha in Circuit, I can just do this in Circuit. And there's a lot of special enemies in Circuit, sure, but being able to kill every fodder enemy that spawns in a really large AoE, and of course the just raw, good survivability that Nezha has, like, there's a lot going on there. Like, that's still very, very good for Circuit, so it's an excellent Circuit option. And it's weird because my original, my impulse on, like, how good Dark Verse was going to be was that it would be, like, kind of like a worse Thermal Sunder. And of note, you can do this with Thermal Sunder as well, but I think that it is a bit worse, mostly because it doesn't ignore armor. But I don't know how many other Warframes we'll see where Dark Verse is going to be, like, a good option for them. Like, this is really, like, a glut of particular synergy that is allowing Dark Verse to be good here. Like, well, I guess I shouldn't say that, because Dark Verse, like, by default is pretty good. Like, it's like a nice trash clear. My punch through is, like, not working on this. There we go. Yeah, it's like a glut of, like, particular synergy that, like, makes it work. That I don't think we're going to find in a lot of other places, if I'm honest. We're at 727 kills. It's been 5 minutes. It's a really good tile for this. The testing I did earlier, I will say, was not, like, this good. We were at, like, at about, I think it was a little under 1100 at 10 minutes. And that was, like, a lot more of, like, a hallways map. This time I'm just, like, kind of seeing what I can do. And, you know, the runs that I test on and the runs that, like, you know, are the ones that get recorded. Sometimes there's a disparity there, but I try and point it out whenever there is one. Torment doesn't like the glaive, turns out. This Torment's done for now. Grab all this. Grab a little extra energy. Well, I'm sure there's a bunch of energy over there. And of course, the nice thing about Xmas being able to get to you, because they're not going to be stopped by your 4, is that they always drop you energy. Like, you're always going to get a refill from them. So, you know. It really is a little bit of a plus-minus there. They're obviously, like, the more dangerous enemies, but because Nezha has such good survivability, are they really that dangerous? Like, you know, before we kind of got into, let's call it, you know, Revenant meta, Nezha was, like, the premier, that guy can't die, and we use him for that, right? Yeah, super. Let's go over here and grab all this to get back up to 100% life support. I'll have to run through back over there to see how many guys we're killing, because a lot of enemies are spawning over there. Yeah, just super good. Like, I mean, obviously. Like, it's a super interesting synergy. It allows you to use it in Circuit really easily as, like, a DPS option, which Nezha just didn't really have before. Like, the thing that Nezha did from DPS before was just being a pure weapons platform. That's all Nezha really had going. And what's interesting is that this build, actually I would say gives Nezha more like equal play whenever you're considering like him or Revenant, right? Like if you're not going to like really super high levels where Revenant's defenses are going to be used, you could, instead of like super invincible Revenant survivability, have like a really compelling DPS option like this, which like I think is a pretty serious argument for like really great status spread DPS and like map nuking versus like just how tough it is to take Revenant down. Like, because you can kill Nezha, but it's certainly not easy, and it's not going to be easy for enemies to do that before like their level is 4 digits, which you're pretty rarely going to see out of Circuit unless you're specifically going for that. Yeah, we love quadratic scaling though. Just feels nuts to look at. I will say, because there's not as many enemies shooting at you very often, your 3 tends to be like a little less strong. So you have to recast it a little bit more. Not that that's a huge problem, because obviously our energy economy is quite good here. Especially if you add the 1 blue shard I mentioned. I really don't think it's necessary, but having that higher energy cap gives you like, whenever you get like big chunks of energy, actually just being able to hold on to that, I think really prevents, you know, you like kind of like going dry most of the time, because like the Xmas are, they can be spaced out a bit depending on like just the map, and if they get stuck somewhere maybe or something like that. Yeah, super good though. We're almost at, yeah, we're, oh, oof. Yeah, that is a new high for what I have seen in the testing with Nezha. That is a new high. To be clear, that is much higher than I have seen. I think the highest I got before was about 1150 or so in 10, and it wasn't even 10 when I checked that. Yeah, that's a full like almost 100 higher. So this tile is doing some good work for Nezha. But yeah, that's what's up. Let's head out. Yeah, just, I mean, feels great to use. Super powerful. One of the things I will say about a Warframe that's not going to get a video about their new augment, because it does not create a new build, is that whenever you look at augments like this, where like DE, like they cooked, like this is an augment that is like, that has purpose and does something really special and interesting that creates a build. You compare that to, let's say, the Chroma augment, and it's like, what happened? What happened here? Because like Nezha is a frame that's so good, and Chroma has been kind of derelict for a while, and the augment quality difference is staggering, I will say. But yeah, that's what's going on with Nezha. Super sick, extremely fun. Hopefully, like, if they nerf it, I think it'll probably be getting rid of it having that window of time where it affects enemies that are immune to status or immune to crowd control, like overguarded enemies and such like that. Otherwise, I hope that they don't change it. I think it's super fun. But yeah, that's what's going on for today. I will see you guys tomorrow for the new Mirage build. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. And also, of course, thanks as usual to the patrons for supporting the channel, especially the $10 patrons: Alex Parnham, Andrew, Arbiter Daydream, Benuven, Plotomatic, Brutus Salazar, Canolathra, Dylan Dworsky, Ethrain, Havon, James Harstthorne, JC4 Science, John Lobdell, Joshua Adams, Luzanth, Malkex Williams, Mikokel, Minty Ginja, Michta, Nerve, Moxidate, Ruby, Sanyu, Skur, Sharp247, Camarilla Wastelander, The Coupon of Death, Tomeworm, Victor Palmer, Waifu Wars, Waldad, and Sarah Fear. And of course, thank you to all of the $5 patrons as well. Your support is extremely appreciated. But yeah, we're about to get the Dante update. Should be an excellent time. Expect tons of videos to be coming about all the changes and new stuff that we're getting in that update, and should be excellent. And then the tier list will hopefully shortly follow.